could be that we have some non-Rotarians with us, which is fine, as long as they're here for the right reasons. But because we can't be absolutely certain as to who's here, we'll restrict what we say to what is in the public domain. Just be mindful of that, please. Everybody is on mute at the moment. And when we get to the end of the presentation, which won't take very long, I'll be inviting questions. And then either I'll unmute you, James will unmute you, or you'll be able to unmute yourself so you can ask questions. And the best way to ask the question is to use the little hand that comes up on the screen rather than physically raising your hand up on screen. And then you can ask a question and I'll then try and answer it. The way I'm going to structure this is quite simple. I'm going to cover the different areas of youth service in turn. First of all, the competitions, and that's going to be broken down into two different areas. The main competitions, the larger competitions, which involve lots of people, Youth Speaks, Young Chef and Young Musician. Then the smaller competitions, photographer, writer, etc. Then we're going to look at the activities that we run within youth, such as RILA, Youth Exchange, Technology Tournament, that sort of thing. And then the other area will then be the clubs for young people, which is Rota Kids and Interact. Now, I'm assuming here that I'm speaking to, in the main, people who haven't got an awful lot of knowledge about youth service. I'm not aiming to speak to the converted. It's great if you've been involved with youth for many, many years. You've got the experience, but I'm assuming some somewhat limited knowledge of youth. So I'm going to be going through these different areas in outline. It'll take about 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'll be open to questions. Now, everything I say is going to be subject to the ever-changing regulations and restrictions concerning COVID. There are already changes for next year, but initially I'm going to go through the different programs and competitions on the basis that this wasn't around. Unfortunately, it is. And as I say, there are already changes which I will cover at the end before opening the forum up for questions. In everything that you do, anything you do for youth, as with any other activity, risk assessments, very important. Michael Aid is strict for advice and guidance there, and safeguarding, particularly with young people. Justin Soper is the district expert with safeguarding. Please run past those Rotarians plans of what you're going to be doing so that we don't run the risk of falling foul of regulations or expectations and the high standards of Rotary. So youth service, congratulations, the fact you're here means you must have an interest in youth services. I think it's the best bit of Rotary. Now I'm biased, but I think helping to develop the skills and talents of young people is a tremendous thing to do. It's engaging and very rewarding, and it ties in very much with the Rotary International 2020-21 theme of Rotary Opens Opportunities. It ties in also with so many other aspects of Rotary, and that's why I think it's so good to get involved with youth. It ties in with membership because with whatever we're running in youth, within youth, it involves invariably parents who are the Rotarians potentially of today, their teachers, teaching assistants, the young people themselves. They're the future Rotarians, and in fact they're also the Rotarians for today as well, with Rota Kids and with Interact. There's a lot of link with membership. Link with community, because there's so much that we do. It's really good engaging with the community, and certainly with, say, Rota Kids and Interact, then there's a lot of community work that they do, either themselves or in conjunction with their sponsoring Rotary Club. And also international. I went to a chartering of a Rota Kids Club not long ago, couldn't get through the door without being sold a purple crocus. These young people are so keen, so enthusiastic. And my aim for this year is to try and get every club to do at least one thing with youth, but to do it well, rather than try to do many things. Great if you can, but time, resources, and expertise within clubs is limited. So aim to do at least one thing, either run a competition or sponsor a Road to Kids Club or Interact Club, but do it well, and then build from that and aim for more over time. So starting off with the competitions, the three main competitions or larger competitions are Young Musician, Youth Speaks, a debate, and Young Chef. And I'll briefly run through those three as a group because they follow a similar format, in as much as there's first of all a club competition, and that could in fact be following a school, a winner or winning team in the case of Youth Speaks, to a district competition, and then the winner from that or winners from that then go through to a regional competition. And our region, Region 6, is a large region covering all of Wales, a lot of the west of England, right down to Rugby and down to Weston-super-Mare. We have a regional competition, and then from there winners go through to RGBI. So with Young Musician, first of all, Sherard Hanson Green from Neston Rotary Club runs that and has run it for many years. And there are two aspects to it. There's a young instrumentalist and a young singer. Standards are very high, and I know Sherard would agree with me when I say that as far as possible, try and have a competition within a club first, even if you haven't got many potential candidates to go through, because it puts them in a good position when they come to the competition at district, having had that experience. So that's Young Musician. And in terms of timing, the district round is normally held late January, early February. All the dates will be posted for all the competitions on the relevant pages of the Youth Services website before the end of the current Rotary year. Then the district competition will take place normally around about March time, early March, and then regional after that, and then RGBI around May. As I say, I'll put all those dates on the website, and all this comes with the caveat that there are going to be changes because of COVID. Youth Speaks, the name was changed last year to Youth Speaks, a debate. It's a little bit misleading. There were thoughts at one time to make it more of a debate. It's hardly changed from before, which is, I think, good. The only difference from before, where there was previously a vote of thanks, in effect now there are two speakers, one for a motion and one against, but they're not they're working as there are two seniors, and probably that's the sort of younger age of the high school and then the senior age group. Teams of 3 people competing against other teams, and we normally have about 8, 9, 10 teams in each of those age categories. Mark Philpott from the Rotary Club of Mould has run that for many years. It didn't happen this current Rotary year because of other factors and circumstances, but it should run next year. Young Chef is an individual competition. There's no age differential there. It's not open to those who are in professional catering courses at college. It's for the enthusiastic amateur. David and but on a budget, these young people have to prepare and serve a meal, and it's judged by professional chefs. So those 3 competitions then, as I said before, then go through from the district competition through to a regional competition, then through onto RGBI. The other competitions, which are simpler, don't have the regional element in them. There's the club competition, perhaps preceded by a competition within the school, club competition, and then through to district, and then straight to RGBI. And the ones that most of you will be familiar with will be Young Writer, which is something that I've coordinated for many, many years. I'm no great expert, but I do have access to a couple of independent judges who are suitably qualified to judge. Young Writer entries have reduced slightly over recent years, and I'd encourage more entries. 3 age categories, basically the junior school children, then the lower end of the high school, and then the seniors. And the theme for this coming year is My Happiest Day. That was decided by RGBI fairly recently. Young Photographer, which again is one that I've run for some time, the theme this year is Wild Nature. And again, I have no great expertise in that, but again, I have contacts with suitably qualified judges. And again, I'd like more entries to that if possible. 3 age categories, the same as for Young Writer, theme Wild Nature. Then the more recently introduced competitions, Young Artist, Jenny Schwartz leads on that one, started last year. The theme again for that one is Wild Nature. It's a 2-dimensional piece of art, no more than A3 in size. There was no size limitation last year, and that backfired because some clubs somewhere produced an absolutely massive piece of art, which was a bit of a challenge to get to Ulster. So they've brought in a size limitation on that, and it can be any form of art in 2-dimensional form. The other competition that was new last year was Young Filmmaker. Nobody, as far as I'm aware, no club took that up last year, and as at the moment we have nobody within district to run with that, so volunteers, please form an orderly queue, and I'll gladly put you in touch with the relevant person at RGBI so that you can help run that for district and to support clubs that may wish to enter. And the other one is Young Environmentalist, new last year. Nobody ran it last year as far as I'm aware. Hopefully we will this year, and very recently, in just recent days, I've got a volunteer Rotarian at Kent Hill from Ross-on-Sea Rotary Club who will lead that within district. Running alongside those, we're starting or experimenting with running a Welsh Young Writer, district only. It's it's not part of the official RGBI competitions, but we have a volunteer from the Rotary Club of Ruthin to run that, and that's going to be a district only competition, and details of that will go on the website. I think the plan will be that the theme will be the same, or certainly very similar to the main Young Writer competition. As I say, that is just a district-only competition. Those are the competitions. Other activities, RYLA, the Rotary Young Leadership Award, which Paul Crosby has run very, very successfully for many, many, many years. And literally hundreds of young people have gone through that very valuable experience. Several days camp at Arfog in near Barmouth. Young people who have potential perhaps need to have that encouragement to get them out of their shells, to develop their potential. And these young people that perhaps start that course full of trepidation and nerves or whatever, develop as young leaders for the future. Paul comes out each year inviting applications, and pretty much every year it is oversubscribed. It is a fantastic thing to do. Again, there are details of this and all the other competitions and activities on the website. So do please look at that. Unfortunately, because of COVID, RYLA has had to be cancelled for this year. Youth exchange, camps and tours. Maria Martin has been running that, looking for a volunteer to take that on. There are all sorts of youth exchange and camps and tours, activities organised throughout RI, opportunities for young people to invariably go abroad for a little more than just the cost of the travel, to have all sorts of experiences, and it's worth looking at that. Participation within this district has been, I've got to say, fairly limited over recent years, but it is a fantastic opportunity and a life-changing opportunity for many young people. Young citizen, there's no involvement in the district with that. It's straight from club to RGBI. A project, some work that a young person or a group of young people are doing that's worthy of recognition. It's supported by the BBC, and as I understand it, across RGBI, it's about 70 or 80 people put forward each year, and a number of those are then showcased with the BBC. Have a look at that. The other one is Technology Tournament. Steve Bakesley from Holywell runs that for district. There are 2 or 3 different technology tournament centres, for want of a better word, across district, where this technology tournament takes place every year. Normally the same time, the same day each year. Doesn't have to be. There are sometimes exceptions. There's a task which is set by RGBI to make something out of bits and pieces, and by getting teams together from schools, often competing schools, it can be a tremendous experience for these young people. And I went along to the technology tournament in Neston High School a few years ago when David Brigden was running it, and it's a fantastic experience. And to see these young people puzzle out how to complete this task with their teachers or tutors at the other end of the room, desperately trying to beat the students and often failing. Clubs, Rota Kids, that took off within this district 2 or 3 years ago, largely thanks to the hard work and dedication of David Brigden. He started off, I think it was the first 4 of the 5 Rota Kids clubs. It's older age primary school children, and they love to get involved with any club. Never a shortage of enthusiasm from these young people. The key is to get engagement with a teacher, TA, somebody within the school. And if they can get these young people involved in running a club, it's like a mini Rotary club, and they do all sorts of activities from car washing, selling crocuses, doing all sorts. It's fantastic to see what work they can do on their own and in conjunction with the sponsoring Rotary Club. Interact is the next age group upwards. It's high school. There should be a natural follow-on from Rota Kids to Interact. It perhaps hasn't been quite as good as it could have been. I'm sure it will now get better now that we have, in fact, a double act running Interact. Justin Soper and Sherry Soper from different clubs within Oswestry. They're available to give help and advice to help clubs establish an Interact club within their area. The other area which I'm not really going to mention, but I will, and that's Rotaract. I mean, the reason I say I'm not going to mention it is that technically it's not part of youth. There is obviously a link there, but because Rotaractors are adults, it's not deemed to be part of youth. That said, as a former Rotaract member, and it was Rotaract that was responsible for me meeting my wife all those years ago, so Rotary's got a lot to answer for. It is a tremendous thing. Numbers of Rotaract clubs have reduced a lot in recent years, but hopefully are now on the way up again. There is help and support within district. I think District Governor-elect David is still looking for somebody to lead that for this coming year. But if there is any interest anywhere, then obviously anybody else on the district team will help and assist clubs where they can. So in summary, please have a go at doing one thing at least. but doing it well. Far better to do one competition and run it really, really well. Pick whatever you feel most comfortable with. If you've got somebody within the club who's an accomplished chef, for example, then consider young chef. Play to your strengths and do a competition or run or organise, set up Rota Kids or Interact, something that you can do well, and from that other things will develop. Now, I mentioned before about COVID, that has had an effect already, and it will have an effect for next year as well. With the finals of the 3 larger competitions that I mentioned before, Musician, Speaks and Chef, the national finals were cancelled this year. We did, within our region, just in the nick of time, get the regional finals completed for all 3 competitions, although we didn't have anybody in Youth Speaks this year. But we did complete the regional finals, but the winners from those regional finals won't unfortunately have the opportunity for an RGBI final, which is unfortunate. As it happens within District 1180, none of our winners were winners that would have gone to RGBI, but that's no real consolation because there will be young people, teams of young people who will be disappointed. Now, looking ahead to the next Rotary year, and that's what this is all about, there is pretty much an embargo on face-to-face meetings, as this has been decreed by RGBI. An embargo on face-to-face meetings, and that would include competitions until 1st of January next year, which is going to present a problem, because what I would normally be saying at this stage is get in touch with schools now before the end of the summer term, because if you leave it till September, they're already too busy. But that's going to be more of a challenge without being able to meet staff in school face to face. But do what you can. But it will certainly make it a challenge. And the other thing I'm very mindful of is that I'm sure when schools do get back, whenever that may be, and that will be a difference there, I'm sure, between England and Wales, and we cover both within District 1180, I'm sure those schools will have a lot of other matters as a priority. So I fear that it will impact on our work for this coming year, but we need to do our best, and links that we have got, try and maintain those links, and if we can't go forward too far this year because of these COVID restrictions, hopefully it will help a lot for ensuing years. Now, already the RGBI finals for next year for Young Musician, Youth Speaks and Young Chef have been cancelled. That was decided by the National Executive, whatever they're called, about 10 days ago. I suppose a decision had to be made. It seems a long time ahead to be thinking about it, but they have cancelled those national finals for those 3 competitions. That doesn't stop clubs running competitions. It won't stop district running a competition for Musician, Speaks and Chef, unless we're forced to not run it. And I've been in touch with my opposite numbers in the adjoining districts, where we collectively make up Region 6, and we've agreed that we will run a regional competition for Young Musician, Young Chef and for Youth Speaks, unless we're prohibited from doing so. Now, it could be that because there's no national competition next year for those 3 competitions, that the time frame could be allowed to slip a little bit. So if we can't quite get through club competitions in January and district competitions in, say, March, we can slip a bit because we haven't got the national competition deadline of May next year. The other competitions will take place as normal. The young writer, young photographer, young artist, filmmaker, environmentalist, they're not in the main face-to-face competitions. Invite those entries in, judge them independently. You don't need to see the young people, and they can be submitted in the usual way. And the dates, the deadline dates for those will be put onto the website shortly. Ryla this year has been cancelled, like I've already mentioned. Prizes, that's something that's quite often asked of me. What do we do about prizes? Now, there's a budget for youth services, but it's limited. And by and large, we don't give prizes at district for the different competitions, other than certificates. It's really the recognition of winning through to national, to RGBI. We don't, in the main, charge entry fees. I think young musicians generally do, and there are some prizes with young musicians. I think that's more a tradition. Yes, we could give prizes, but if we awarded prizes, it would have to be paid for in some way, either by having entry fees, which I think will potentially put people off, or by increasing the fees that all clubs pay. So by and large, there are not prizes. Within your club, you can give whatever prizes you like. Winners at national do get a prize. But when you're thinking of prizes, don't always think of monetary prizes. For example, for youth speaks, for example, the prize could be a day's experience in court. Prize for the winner of Young Chef could be an experience day within a kitchen at a top hotel, a restaurant with a chef, that sort of thing. So don't always think of monetary prizes. I've mentioned the website. That's really the first port of call. I try and keep it reasonably up to date. Sometimes a bit of a challenge, but I try and keep it up to date. And there are links on there which will take you through to the RGBI website, which have the competition rules. And they will be on there by the 1st of July. Now, what I can tell you, because I've had quite a lot of discussion about it, is that with the competition rules for 2020-21, there's going to be very little change from last year. There was an agreement to do a full review once every 3 years. We're just into the second year of that 3 years, so there are going to be very, very few changes to the competition rules. On the website, on the individual pages, with the individual competitions and activities, there's the contact detail there for the lead within district. Use those leads to answer any inquiries there. Those people are more than happy to help guide clubs and Rotarians should they wish that assistance. Please contact me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And if I don't know the answers, I will find out. That's really all I have to say. So I'm now opening it up to anybody who wishes to ask any question, and I will endeavour to answer it. So if you want to ask a question, then on your screen somewhere there's a little thing which says reactions. If you press on that, press on raised hand. That's probably better to attract my attention rather than waving your hand. Are there any questions? James, are you there? Can you see anybody?
Yep, I'm here.
Anybody asking for questions?
Philip Horde has raised his hand.
Right.
I've requested him to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Fire away, please.
To unmute himself.
Hi, Howard. I'd just like to remind District that there is the creative writing course at Llanystumdwy, which is a Rotary sponsored course, which really is excellent. And our local high school highly recommends it. And it's disappointing to see that that's not been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, the creative writing course is indeed an excellent thing. It's sponsored by the Rotary Club of Pwllheli, and my own club, we sent people for the last 3 years, 4 years, 3 years I think it is, and it is very good. It's not a district thing, it's run by the Pwllheli Club, and it's a tremendous experience, and it's open to clubs throughout district. It's not just a Welsh thing, it's English as well, and it's pretty good value. Top class tutors running the the creative writing course. It was cancelled this year because of COVID, and hopefully one will be run next year, but I'd certainly commend it. The young people who went from my own club all of those years have done exceptionally well as a result of it. One in particular puts down her success at university to that course. Any other questions?
I have DG David raring to speak.
DG David, sir.
Not quite. Picking up on what Philip's just said about writing, I would encourage, especially this year, every club to encourage children to write. When you consider what BBC Two does with the young kids there, and the amount of entries that they actually get, if we can latch on to something like this, I think it would be phenomenal. For the other children's competitions, I was in on the executive because I represent the DGE group that I'm with. And you're right in saying that the environmentalist, photographer, artist, writer especially, filmmaker and citizen, I don't think you mentioned Citizen Award. That in itself, the Citizen Award, is taking place on BBC this week. So if clubs can actually think of some children that have gone above and beyond for next year, I'm not talking about now, but for next year, then please bear that in mind. But this, going back to writing, I would really encourage this to take part, because there's no guarantee that Youth Speaks will actually take place at all because of the situation that we find ourselves in. I think the teachers have got perhaps enough on to cope with what they're coping with at present. Last night at the community, I mentioned that for people who don't know, I own a post office, and a teacher came in with 12 large letters. They'd already delivered some by hand, but these 12 large letters were going out to children that don't have access to the internet and they haven't got a computer. We're very good at finding computers for children in the third world, and perhaps we should look a little bit closer to home in this respect. I've written to Amanda Watkin, President Donna and incoming President Tom, to consider collaborating with Post Office Limited, with their corporate social responsibility head, to see if we can get any further with this. And I'm not saying we can, but when I saw the fact that 12 children in one post office, my little post office, were suffering by not being on the internet, I thought that was dreadful. So we've got that to consider. Guy Harrison wrote on the chat to me that night that Greenbank, a school in Southport, is after 15 computers because these children have not got computers. There are that many redundant computers lying about in these corporate companies that I'm sure we could do something to get them on board with this. But that will then lead onto the writing. And if we can get kids writing, like they do for the BBC, I can't remember what it's called now, but whatever it's called anyway, they get hundreds of thousands of entries in this. We could, if we got 1/10 of that, wouldn't that be phenomenal? So I'm not saying forget Youth Speaks by any means. That could actually take place on Zoom. If you think about it, if the kids want to take part, then they could perhaps do it on Zoom. They're doing choirs, they're doing music, they're doing all sorts on Zoom now. So there is a possibility there. But as for Young Chef, I have my doubts. We've got to think outside the box. I don't know whether Ian Henderson's trying to say 500 words. Thanks, Ian. That's the one. So yes, latch on to that, and I think will make a real difference. We can get to the children, not necessarily through the schools, but through Road to Kids, through Interact, through all sorts of media, and try and encourage kids to write stories, and they'll amaze you. They really amaze you. So please think about it. Thanks, Howard.
Thank you, David. Yeah, Young Citizen Festival. Yes, I did mention it actually, but thank you for raising it again. Young Writer. Yeah, I'd love more entries from all different age categories. We do get entries in each age category, but very, very few. We'd love to have more. There was debate this year about restricting it to typed entries, but we recognise that that would be wrong. So written entries are fine, handwritten. What I would say is that if a club runs a competition, then do filter those entries, or ask the school to filter those entries, because one club that should be nameless invited a local school to participate, and they had about 400 entries, which was quite a task for that club. So get the school to send in their best 30 or 40 rather than 400. But yeah, we'd love to have more entries for Young Writer. It's something that's sort of relatively easy to do. Yes, please do it. You mentioned about Zoom for Young Musician and Young Musician and Youth Speaks. We're looking at it. With Youth Speaks, the sheer number of people involved, where you've got 3 people in each team, you've got to have each team there. The judges have to be there, but then also independent so they can deliberate. It's not impossible. We're looking at it. Young Musician, because the standard is so high, and sometimes it is just the slightest difference, a lost note or whatever, where it is probably difficult using Zoom rather than in person, but it's being looked at. So we'll see what we can do on that. But thank you, David, for those comments. Any further questions? James,
Yep.
Anybody else there?
Yeah, we have John.
Sorry, David, do you want to come back on something there?
Oh.
Yeah, it's just to make you aware. District Council this time is going to be somewhat different, because again it's going to be on Zoom. But I'll put it this way: I may have a surprise for you with Youth Speaks. So watch this space.
Can't wait. James, who have we got next?
Right, John has his hand up. So John, if you're ready to take the floor.
Yeah, Howard, just a couple of points actually that David touched on, both of them. One was just some clarification, please, on the chef category.
Yep.
Is there no age differences on those?
No, there's no age difference. With all the competitions, the maximum age is up to age 18. It's as at the beginning of the Rotary year. So somebody could be 18 when they actually take part. But no, with Young Chef, there's just one age category.
Right.
So that's across the board. So it tends naturally to be those that are perhaps 15, 16, 17 who are more likely to win. But not necessarily. Who knows? And certainly David Watson would encourage clubs to enter. I think this year there were 18 individuals, 8, 9, something like that.
Right.
We can cope with a few more. It depends on the number of cooking stations available in the college. But if we were overrun with applications, we'd have to have a couple of semi-finals and then a final. It can be worked if we get the numbers.
Right. Thanks for that. The other point that David mentioned about the 500 words, I think he's got a really good point there, and I think that sort of thing should be encouraged. I mean, obviously, they get such a lot of entries on Radio 2 because it is a national radio station, and I just wondered how involved we could become with local radio stations around the area to get people involved in that. David.
I think Well, David, go on, David. Do you want to say something there? David Hartley?
Yes, sir. Angela Williams has got a contact with BBC Radio Merseyside. There's a possibility there. And if anybody can get to the local radio stations or the local newspapers, are you listening, Di Harrison? Then by all means do that. And let's get this out there. That there is such a possibility that we can encourage the kids to get writing for us, not just for 500 words. I mean, they may send the same story in, and why not? Because so many miss out on the 500 words. Let's pick up on the ones that miss out.
Thank you, David. Yeah, let's encourage young writers. Let's encourage all the competitions. Let's try and get more involvement. That's just reminded me of one thing. With young musician, be careful to use the words young musician and not young musician of the year, because that's copyright BBC or something like that. And Rotary have been threatened with all sorts of hellfire and damnation by using the trademarked name. So just be careful to stick with the right terminology, please. Any more questions, James?
We had a question in the chat from Jeff. It was more of a sort of fielding response from people saying we have a very active Rota Kids club that have been unable to get their parents to come with them when they come speak at our club. Anyone have any suggestions to overcome this?
Without putting him on the spot, if David Brigden is here, I think he is. Does David Brigden want to come in? Because David has got a lot of experience with Rota Kids. Whether he can answer that, I don't know. David, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Howard. I have actually replied to Jeff and said it is quite a difficult one. But I think it's very much dependent on the club and the school that the club exists in. I know the club that Jeff refers to, it is a very successful one. It may be that the times of the meetings that the Rotary Club meeting isn't convenient for parents to go along and support the children. What we did with one club was to, when we were presenting certificates and things, was to actually hold the event in the school, and during, well, either at the beginning of the day, normal assembly time, or towards the end of the day, when parents may well be dropping off their children or alternatively collecting them, and they can either, you know, stay for half an hour at the beginning of the day or come half an hour early at the end. And that seemed to work quite well. So it may be that there has to be greater flexibility on behalf of the Rotary Club in terms of when it holds its meetings, middle of the day, maybe when parents are working or they're looking after other children. End of the day, they've possibly come home from work and they don't want to go out again. Those are just two things to think about. You are reliant on the staff within the school working with you, and if you get a good person leading the Rota Kids team club in the school, and they're liaising constantly with the Rotary Club, then it does make life a lot easier.
Thank you, David. Does that answer your question?
I think he'll get back to us in the chat. There's a couple of hands now. We have Jeffrey Howard.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I attended as an AG to Southport Sunrise Rotary Kids Charter, and they held it at a Brewers Fair. And it was brilliant. The kids were brilliant. They had various awards being appointed, and the parents came along, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable morning. I suggest, Jeff Atley, that you might try that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Yeah, the Rotary Kids Clubs, they are fantastic. And if you can get one off the ground, then you'll never look back. They are the Rotarians, well, for the future and now as well. And they're so enthusiastic, no lack of enthusiasm and wanting to volunteer to do good things. Any other questions, James? Anybody else?
Well, I do see Jeff physically waving his arm.
Oh, right.
Thank
there
you.
Go, Jeff.
Am I on?
Yep.
Hi, Jeff.
Firstly, thanks to David Brigden. He suggested we write to all the parents. On every occasion, we've written to all the parents via the school. Kids have taken letters home. So I have tried that, but maybe we'll keep at it. I particularly like the idea of visiting at the end of the school day, which isn't convenient for our club, but we'll have to make it convenient if necessary. And our kids haven't had a charter to my best knowledge, so maybe that's something else we can pick up from the other Jeff. Thanks for those ideas.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further questions?
Mark Philpott apparently was physically waving his arm.
Mark,
I've requested for you to unmute Mark.
Can you hear me there?
hi, Mark. Yes, can.
Right. Firstly, I'm sorry, but I'm rather upset by DG David's comments to reduce the approach for Youth Speaks. Youth Speaks has a great opportunity of getting schools working together, and bearing in mind the fact that next year there won't be a national, we will not be under pressure in terms of trying to ensure that all the competitions have taken place before March or April. Consequently, as a district, we will be free to choose when we want to hold those competitions. And if schools aren't fully up and running, able to run until January, then so be it. We can still work through March and April. Therefore, I would encourage clubs certainly to put forward their discussions and with schools in order to take part in Youth Speaks. It's the only competition which involves a team, and therefore schools are very, very keen to be involved because it's teamwork, not just an individual. And provided you've got a teacher who will help that, then they will certainly take part. The second point I'm a little bit upset about at the moment is that DG David refers to new announcements, but I honestly cannot tell you what they are because I have no idea of the discussion, and I feel rather hurt at that. I've been running Youth Speaks for the district for the last 7-8 years, and therefore I feel that it would be helpful to know what is being discussed without hearing it on a Zoom meeting. So please, as a club, make sure that you contact your schools. Drama teachers, English teachers are the best bet to make a contact, and they will have competitions in school. They will be raring to go next year after being held back this year. All I can say is, please get the clubs, get the schools organized to take part. And if you can only have a competition within the club in January, February, doesn't matter. We can delay district competition until late March, April. We're not held up by national competitions. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you very much, Mark. I concur with all those comments. And as I said before, because there is not a national final, we can allow the normal timetable to slip for next year. And I have already agreed that with my opposite numbers in our adjoining districts, which collectively make up Region 6. So, yeah, as long as we get the regional finals finished by, it could be June next year, we've got that extra time. So even if we can't make a meaningful start within clubs until 2-3 months later than normal, we can still catch up and we can still see these competitions through. And I'm determined, as long as we're able to do so, we're not prohibited from doing so in some way, to see that all these competitions take place, because if they don't take place, then we are disadvantaging these young people, denying them the opportunity to take part in their vocation, whatever you may call it, and giving them the opportunity to compete against each other and as teams together to help develop their skills and talents. And that's what we're really about, helping develop the skills and talents of young people. And we owe it to them to do whatever we can to make sure that all the competitions take place where we possibly can. James, anybody else waiting?
Well,
Philip
David, I presumably David wants to comment on what was said. So,
yeah, if I can, please. Mark, I certainly would not discourage anybody from taking in Youth Speaks. I'm just reporting on what happened at the executive a couple of weeks ago. And I'm surprised that you haven't been informed as yet by Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland. I don't see that as my place. I'm not allowed to actually report on these meetings. I'm just giving you prior information if you haven't heard already. Sorry?
Sorry, you said it publicly.
Yeah.
You said that there were announcements to come publicly, and if I'm not informed of that, that embarrasses me. That's the issue.
I understand where you're coming from there. So I apologise if I've offended you, but it wasn't meant as an offence. The reason behind this, we have one DGE who's a headmaster, and he said you can forget the competitions altogether this year. Now, I don't agree in that. I don't agree with that at all. And that's why I mentioned the fact that perhaps even Youth Speaks could be done online, on Zoom. The teachers, I'll admit, like he said, they're having fun already, catching up with what's going on since lockdown. And to pressurise them to take part in something like this might be a little too much. I don't know. I've not dealt with the teachers. You have, Mark. So I'm not dissuading anybody from doing that. But what I would say is to be careful. Be very careful. And don't be upset if it doesn't happen this year. There's always another year that it can happen. But if schools are willing to take part, then by all means do. But nothing's going to happen this year, this calendar year. So it's got to be taken at least from January 1st onwards. And we'll just have to see what happens there. As I said, I'll hopefully have a surprise for you at District Council about Youth Speaks. But I'm keeping that in the hat.
That's what I'm saying.
To now.
It may be.
Sorry, that's what I'm saying. Surprise at District Council. I'm not aware.
No, it's not. It's not an announcement. It's a surprise. It's not an announcement. It's a surprise for you.
I'll leave it.
Yeah, I think it's worth moving on. I did get an interesting message from Jeffrey Howard who says, "With James, we've spent nearly an hour on competitions, but we should also be talking about youth membership." So I welcome thoughts on that, Howard.
Well, youth membership, that's Rota Kids and Interact, both of which I've covered, and I'd encourage clubs to engage with young people to form Rota Kids clubs and Interact clubs. Some Rotary clubs have got more than one Rota Kids clubs. Neston was a good example, where they had, and probably still have, a number of Rota Kids clubs, one in each of the primary schools.
Okay. Do you want to take any more questions?
Any more questions?
We have Philip with his hand up.
Yes, Howard, just generally, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
You referred to the qualification of students with young chef not doing professional qualifications for being chefs.
Yes.
What exactly does it mean? Because I think, and I'm speaking here on behalf of David Watson, there seems to be a lot of confusion, and there was confusion this year as to what courses qualify as being to do with cooking, etc.
Okay, I think I'd have to refer to David on that one. He's been in touch with the RGBI organiser, and as I understand it, in the rules and guidance notes which are coming out this year, it's going to be a little bit more specific. It was previously, I think, slightly loosely worded, and it was anybody studying at beyond level 2, I think level 2 catering or A-level standard would be excluded. I think it's going to become a little bit more specific in the rules and guidance notes for this coming year. But that's something that David will have to take up with the RGBI organiser, somebody senior, I can't remember his name now, who is very enthusiastic and will sort of put to bed any doubts and clarify exactly what the restrictions are, because it's unfair for the vast majority of entrants to Young Chef who are enthusiastic amateurs if they are up against somebody who is being professionally trained. But thank you.
Thanks, Howard.
Any other questions for anybody else?
Well, I think it's a good natural end, because we're just coming onto the hour mark.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Now, if you want to contact me, please email me. I will get back to you as soon as I can, because at the moment I'm still working. I won't necessarily get back to you within 10 minutes, but I will within a day or so. And as I said before, on the website, there are the contacts. You can email directly the various competition leads, the organisers for Rota Kids, like David Brigden, Sherry and Justin Soper for Interact. All these people are very, very keen to promote their own aspects of youth. Please use them. They're there to not only run and organise the district competitions, but ultimately to help Rotarians help the young people in our community. It's a greatly rewarding thing to do. So thank you to everybody who's here with us today. Enjoy what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Keep an eye on the website, and as things develop with COVID, then I will update the website as we go along. Otherwise, just please email me. I'll give you the latest at that time. But thank you very much, everybody. Last word from anybody else?
Yeah, I would just like to mention that the public image session is tomorrow, which that is my own session, so I won't be facilitating, I'll actually be running the session. And on Friday the 29th, it's international. And then that will be the end of our service lead sessions. So tomorrow, 27th, public image, same time, same place. And Friday the 29th is international, same time, same place. Thank you. And
thank you to you, James, for giving up another evening to help facilitate this. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you very much, James. Thank you. And thank you to everybody. Thank you.
Well.
That went down well, didn't it?